It's the Infiniti QX60. So it's not the big body on frame boy, it's the one below, 7-seater, everybody must have one, and the sister car to the new Pathfinder, which is mostly new but has an engine from the year prior. There's a lot going on here.
If you're confused as to where this stands in the Infiniti lineup, just think of it as the gussied up Pathfinder. You think Pathfinder?
Yes.
We all know what the Pathfinder is.
Yes.
This is the gussied up, more leather, more style, hopefully more substance to this, as you said, very incredibly competitive market.
Yes.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive.
TV, web, and podcast. This is Everyday Driver. Why Infiniti?
Excellent question. Why did you pick the Infiniti QX60, or should you, over the Pathfinder? Not just in the pantheon of all of the seven seaters.
Tell him what he's won.
I agree.
You have won the prize.
I agree. It's one of the first things that struck me when I drive this is I start thinking about these other brands, and that is Audi, Cadillac, and Lincoln. And the reason I bring those up is because all three of those with this Infiniti have the same struggle. Yeah. They take and make a luxury car out of a lesser car from their sister companies. All of them have kind of ebbed and flowed for when that works. Because sometimes they take a lesser model and they make it really work. And sometimes they take a lesser model and you go, why would you spend the extra money? Infiniti struggles here in a way that Lexus doesn't, because Lexus has some bespoke stuff. Infiniti takes all of the Nissan product and makes the Infiniti version, and the Nissan product across the board is being updated and revised, and we've liked a lot of it. But now here's Infiniti taking that Pathfinder and trying to make a better version, and I am struggling with the point. I got to put it out there.
All right. Well, I'm glad you thought of those brands, because the brands that I thought of were Hyundai and Kia.
Yes.
And Toyota and Ford. And those are still competing in this same category.
Absolutely they are.
But not with the gussied up version. But I'm going to take you back to the door handles. All the way back. Rewind all the way back. More than 3 decades ago.
Okay.
To the door handles.
All right.
What designers love is anything in nature, especially Japanese car companies. Their pickup truck is the rhinoceros theme. The sports car is the shark theme. But good news, this is very much based on nature. And it has to do with a Japanese concept called Ma. It's spelled M-A.
Okay.
This is catnip for the design team, okay?
I'm so excited. We get to do nature again.
You get a theme.
Oh, yeah, with
it's based in nature. This one happens to be the character of door and sun, and it is the crevice through which the sun peeks. And it is defined on Infiniti's website as the space between elements and the space in which we live our lives.
This is really the inspiration for this car.
This is this car. And if the space is restricted, we cannot grow.
You know what you need to navigate that space? You need a Pathfinder. That's how you navigate the space.
You and your logic.
I'm telling you, the space has been navigated with a Pathfinder. I'm telling you, QX60 means nothing.
Ruining my whole story.
I liked your story very much.
It was so good. But it's not mine, it's Infiniti's. And for Infiniti to compete against the brands you suggested and the lower price cars from the other companies I suggested, what is it? What are you buying? It is the experience. It is the space, because of all the cars that we can name in this huge category, there's a lot to like from all these car companies. So you're buying materials and the experience, because at this point, if you don't buy the Pathfinder, you just have disposable income. You just wanted this.
You wanted something better.
Because it was more, better, different, luxurious. It's not necessarily a standout, but it's not bad in almost any category, from driving to people to looks. Name a thing, and it's good. It's fine. It works.
Very down
Thumbs
the
up.
middle. It's very down the middle, box check. The Pathfinder, for the first time in a while, has actually become competitive.
Yes.
I feel like this is an entry to the segment, and that's where I struggle with it. Because if we're going to go near luxury, this is $64,000.
It is.
So it's not, look, this isn't Range Rovers, it's not Escalades. This
near
is
luxury. We're up against luxury. Luxury. Luxury's
We've found the path toward luxury. Maybe we'll use a Pathfinder to find that path. You gave me the story, and I'm gonna grind it into the earth.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. It happened, man. We're going there. If we're gonna talk near luxury and $64,000, then I try to think of what do I think is in this exact segment that is as luxurious or more, or what do I think is as good as this and cheaper? And I find this stuck between two very specific vehicles. The lesser version is you save 10 to 15 grand at least, and you just buy the Pathfinder.
Okay.
Because we really like the Pathfinder. The one we had a really interesting brown and black interior. I really liked that interior. I thought it was a lot of vehicle for the money.
Yes.
But if you want something more luxurious than that, what you're fighting with this is the Hyundai Palisade, which I think has an even more luxurious interior feel than this and is cheaper.
This is the in-between. This is you searching for an SUV that isn't all the typical brands.
Yes.
And if you're atypical and you go against the grain and you don't follow the crowd and you do it specifically for the sake of polarity, Infiniti, my friend, is for you.
Fair.
This is your choice. Didn't they do door handles back in the 90s? And what's different about this? And I still can't answer the question. So it's space. It's the amount of space, but it's the space with the luxury. At a certain price point, even though there's lots of overlap.
I actually think that the drivetrain in this shouldn't be overlooked. It is that 3.5 liter V6 that they updated a couple of years ago across their lineup of trucks.
Yes.
And they got rid of the CVT. Hallelujah. Keep preaching. The CVT is gone now. And what you're left with is this 9-speed that's in the Frontier, that's in the Pathfinder, and it is an excellent 9-speed. And it actually makes this engine somewhat interesting to work with in a way a CVT never, ever was. But I want to keep congratulating Nissan for making that choice. They made it well, and the result is excellent, and I don't think it can be overlooked because it really is superb from a drivetrain perspective. This actually has a little bit more power, inexplicably, than the Pathfinder does.
Because it's the notch up.
Exactly. It's got like 10 more horsepower and
torque.
You're
up to notch 1 in my book.
I am surprised, though, that even in sport mode, it doesn't feel powerful. You have to really dig deep in the pedal to wake it up.
Like floor.
There's a little bit of power here. And then it has a normal transmission, which is excellent. The Pathfinder felt okay power-wise. This feels down on power, but the numbers are more, which is odd.
Well, let's talk about style. The big differentiating factor between all the brands and all the vehicles we've suggested in this market, this is a true 7-seater, well, 6, because with the Autograph version, it has, look, a center console that is apparently removable. I didn't try because I didn't want to carry a big piece of plastic around.
Yes.
But you do get the captain's chairs, you get the heads-up display, and you also get the padded dash. The quilted leather is like a, what? A pond with ripples.
What they said to you, really?
This is from Infiniti. This is not from me.
You're quoting, of course you are. All right.
This is the feeling. So it's a serenity. It's the space in which we live our lives together, philosophical.
There's a lot of space in this episode. I've been very impressed.
It's all about that. But again, and the reason you would buy this is for style. Look at the rear window, the very rear, behind the C-pillar, okay? So there's 2 brushed aluminum strips, and those define the theme, and then you're looking at the space between, and the body side, the tall proportion to the narrow windows.
You're having so much fun with this.
The rear lights are actually pleasing. They look like a nice shape. So are the headlights. They're interesting. Everything about it is very tasteful. It looks great. Interior, beautiful. Another example is this black open-pore ash wood. Well, I like the differentiating factor. Materials, it feels good. You get in, you think, well, this is nice. You want to hear those words as an owner.
You do.
This is nice.
I'm surprised at how different it looks in here than the new Pathfinder. The Pathfinder looks far more rugged. This looks far more luxurious. I have a few little usability things I want to challenge you with.
Okay.
We have haptic palooza here.
Indeed.
It's actually a haptic disaster because this entire panel in the middle here that is the HVAC controls is all haptic. It's not actual buttons.
Correct.
But if you've used this at all, and I've used it quite a bit, it has the feeling of a PS2 controller when they first got the shaky things.
Ooh.
The whole panel is one big shake.
Yeah, the entire panel moves. You can see it move.
It's not specific to where you touch. They just put one shaker in the back, like that initial shaker in the PS2 controller. I'm going back a few generations. The other thing is, this has massage seats. You'd think so. It's a luxury vehicle.
Yeah, okay.
It's got first row and second row, heated and cooled is available. That's all very cool.
That's very good.
Excellent. It's very nice. Those all work really well. It is a single bladder. It feels like massage seats when they first got introduced, like in the early 2000s, like, oh, you have a massage seat. And it's this weird inflatable thing that's breathing behind you. You can hear it breathing, and it doesn't entirely work, but you know the seat is pulsing. Okay. It feels like, I got to turn it off. It feels like a massage seat from like 2006.
It's like the seat's trying to be resuscitated.
Yes!
By the class.
The receipt is...
Not the expert, the class, learning how to do CPR.
This is near luxury with old tech. And I think if you want to be here, it's Hyundai Palisade over this. Or if you want to be in the Nissan product line, you get the Pathfinder, and I think you spent your money better.
I like that Infiniti is trying. Because for Infiniti to continue to have a brand, they're going to have to continue pushing in this direction. If they offered this for $5,000 or $10,000 less, that'd be the sweet spot.
Oh, I agree.
Then you'd come running because you do get all this stuff for far less. But as it is, they're very competitive and therefore not standouts.
Well, it's 10 grand Hyundai too expensive to be a standout for what you're being offered. And at 10 grand less, you're competing with a ton of other things that are as good or possibly better, including the Pathfinder, which is really problematic.
Pathfinder just keeps coming back to haunt us
because
it is really good.
We really liked it. Yes.
It's Nissan's resurgence, and this is just the gussied up version.
All right, your turn to drive. Around the front, watch the ice.
Alrighty. Every car manufacturer has their own way of shifting, right?
Yes.
Putting the car into gear. This one is not really a puck, it's not really a handle, it's a brick, a block, where you push the side button and you either push forward for reverse or pull back for drive, and then the park button is right on top. Now, this is a little bit more intuitive than most because sometimes I'd want to put it in park and push all the way forward. Well, that's actually reverse. But it doesn't really change the automotive landscape.
No,
we didn't
of course not.
actually move the automotive kingdom forward by doing it like this. It's just different. But Infiniti has to. They've got to set themselves apart somehow.
Well, and I want to applaud Infiniti Nissan for their updated UI. You can now do wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. That is excellent. You can, of course, plug it in if you'd like. This screen is really wide. You can split it multiple different ways to show multiple different things. That's stuff that was found in the Pathfinder as well. You're right, that does keep coming up. Of course, it's touchscreen, but you've also got an actual knob you can navigate down here, kind of like the old iDrive that BMW introduced. It's the same idea. So you can actually have you don't have to look interface, which we always appreciate. When it's just touchscreen, that gets frustrating. Of course, here in the middle we have the haptic disaster. But
haptic disaster. Is that like a beautiful disaster?
You got to talk about the weird gauges you can decide on there on the center.
Yes. Well, the initial setup is very much like the Pathfinder. It's sort of like two scroll wheels on the side. But the one we've got now is very much a traditional look. What I want to talk about is how it drives.
Okay, please.
The steering wheel seems to be a touch smaller in diameter than I would expect.
I would agree with that.
And therefore it says a little bit of sporty nature. But it doesn't drive sporty. There goes a Cayenne. That's far sportier, even though it's not a 7 or 6 passenger.
Sure.
But this doesn't drive as a standout kind of driver's car, or driver's SUV. It's just fine. Whereas I felt like the Pathfinder was a little bit lighter. It just seemed to have more energy. Whereas this seems heavier, it drives more truck-like, and it seems more sluggish. I have to thrash the gas pedal to get any power out of this thing. And we're in sport mode. You do have the paddles, but it just seems like this doesn't want to get out of its own way.
I mentioned in our Pathfinder review that I found that to feel bigger than it actually was. It was the size of a Sorento, but drove bigger than that. And that is still present here, but in the Pathfinder, I never found myself going, why isn't this more powerful? And here I do, and then I see the numbers and I scratch my head. It's very weird.
It's not a driver's mobile. That's not what Infiniti is selling here. They're selling you different, and it's spacious, and it's a little bit more luxurious, and it isn't a Lexus.
But this entire market is not worried about driving quality.
Of course. However,
many others drive better. The Palisade and Telluride both drive better. I think the Pathfinder drives better than this.
I do too.
And that's not even the point. It's not even why you buy them, and yet it still is more satisfying to drive the other ones, which is weird.
Which should be an added benefit.
I actually think the seats are worse than the Pathfinder too. I don't like these seats.
Oh, you're right. I agree. These are very flat. If you're going to do any sort of cornering, you should forget that. You should let that go.
We drove this on the freeway for a reason.
Happening.
This is not a cornering mobile, and yet I found when I just started commuting in it and just driving it normally, I never quite got comfortable enough. And I don't remember that problem in the Pathfinder. And most of the stuff in this market segment, at least for driver and passenger, the seats are pretty good. And these, we've stepped up in luxury to $64,000, and I keep going, why can't I get the seat right?
So you had trouble over here just finding the driving position? Because
No,
I had trouble finding position.
But driving
it
position
just seemed
is
to
an
be
issue.
like
It's not
fussing with the steering wheel
there's
and
a lot of
fussing
that.
with back and forth an inch, a little bit.
There's a
down,
lot of that
up.
to try to find the right ergonomics, and then once you get, I think I'm set,
sorted.
you're never quite comfortable enough.
Yeah.
And that's too bad.
It's interesting. There's a lot of space around your knees, around your legs here. But I feel like a little kid sitting way down in a truck, like I'm driving my dad's truck.
Okay.
I feel strange. It doesn't feel like I'm part of the vehicle. I feel like I'm just kind of along for the ride, and I'm not really connecting with it in that way. When I connect with a truck or a car, I feel integral to the driving process. We're one. We're horse and rider. This doesn't
Mazda.
feel like
That's
that.
Mazda. Mazda is a horse and rider thing. Not here. Not Infiniti.
But you get the idea.
I do get the idea. Yes.
Here, I just feel like I've got all this space. I could just got all this space everywhere. Like I don't feel like I'm in charge. I don't feel in control.
You said the idea was to find the space.
Yes.
Pathfinder.
I guess I found the space.
Okay. Now look, there's also upsides though. This does have a 6,000 pound tow rating, which is quite a bit for unibody. A lot of the guys, when you get up there above 5,000, you've got to go to body on frame.
So does the Pathfinder.
Yes.
What? Who said that?
I don't disagree. It's exactly the same as the Pathfinder.
I'm going to look at the scenery.
Nobody's surprised by the fact it's the same as the Pathfinder.
Look at the scenery.
But it is good to say that this engine with the 9-speed will do 6,000 pounds of towing.
Yeah.
I didn't see a trailer brake in here. That's the only thing about it. I didn't see
You'd probably
if
have
you
to
actually
add
got into towing. So that is the only issue. This is a near luxury, near miss. That's where I'm landing on it. Because I would rather be in the Pathfinder if I want Nissan, because I think the Pathfinder has turned out to be really good. I like the design of the Pathfinder, even inside as well. Or if I want near luxury for around this price, I'm going to spend less and get a Hyundai Palisade and feel like I got more.
And the funny thing is, I welcome Infiniti continuing to try to make their mark in the marketplace. But throughout the entire history of the brand, I don't feel like they've made a mark on the automotive landscape like Lexus has.
They haven't.
Because they kind of started at the same time.
Yep.
They haven't made a mark like Acura has. They've just been another choice. What is the standout thing about it? And I can't tell you.
Infiniti's heyday was the G-Series sedans. Keep in mind, I was talking about early 2000s tech for the haptics and the massage. The early 2000s G-Series Infinitis were being put up against the 3 Series at the time. They were getting put up against the Mercedes and being said, this is your alt, because Lexus wasn't there yet. That was the best Infiniti ever was. I hope they can find it again. Right now, they're struggling with trying to make something that feels luxurious, but is mostly just a donation to the brand. And this is exactly where Lincoln was 15 years ago. When they were taking all of the Ford product and making a slightly warmed over thing and selling it as a Lincoln. And it took them nearly a decade to find their footing, but Lincoln now has actually their own flavor, even though they're using chassis and tech from Ford.
Lincoln no longer makes cars.
True.
They no longer sell cars, so maybe that's the recipe for Infiniti. You're trying to be too many things to too many people in too many markets. Just do 1 or 2 things really well. Don't become Chrysler, but just do 1 or 2 things really well, and maybe then you'll fully find your voice. If you like the style, buy it. That's what car ownership is about.
True.
You have to like what you drive. You have to like looking at it. You have to like being in it. But otherwise, for this price point, you could do so much better. Or what if you did equal? You did equally as good in other brands.
What you really should do is find a path to something else under the Nissan brand.
It's never going to end.
I'm not going to let it go.
It's never going to end.
At least they found the path. There it is.
They were finding it, trying, searching. I'm going to look at the landscape again.
Path found.